Moving into private. Ooh, echo. This might be a short delay. A recording of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. When you come in, attendees are required to wear face masks and can be removed when seated. I hope everybody who's got an NHS app has been to the poster to signify they've entered. And most important, would members and officers please remember to switch on microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone, and when finished, switch the microphones off. Reporting officers joining using Teams, use the hands up icon, and Matt will inform me that somebody wants a question or comment. And for those people joining us on Teams, please switch your cameras on. And those here, hopefully, have switched their mobiles either onto silent or off completely. Thank you. Right, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, apologies from Councillor M. Hussain, Councillor Skeppelhorn, Councillor Wahid, and also Councillor Malcolm.
Right, minutes of the meeting on.
Sorry, Councillor Ahmed is coming in 10-15 minutes.
All right, minutes of the 2nd of November. I think I haven't noticed any typos, various things. Anybody got anything to say? The only thing I noticed, we made a request for how many tons of garden waste is collected between March 2020 and November 2020. Did we ever?
Yes, Chair, that was circulated to members a couple of days after the meeting through Sean Askin.
Okay. In that case, if you give me permission to sign the minutes. Disclosure of interest.
I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay. If anything comes up which somebody is involved in, if they'd like to just indicate. Local Government Finance Act.
Section 106 is Chair.
Right, urgent business. References from committees and other bodies.
A non-Chair.
Right, I haven't got any announcements at this stage. The first report is the finance update. Over to Dev.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So I'll give you a brief overview on the Q2 financial position for the revenue and capital budget. This is the report going to executive on the 6th of December. So it's already on the council website. We'll have a much more detailed discussion on our next FRG, and any forecast from this report is being included in the 22-23 budget, which will have a budget presentation later, so I can touch on that. Based on our latest forecast, based on the 6 months activities, the net service overspend overall, there's a forecast of around 700,000. So we are working on a recovery plan. So the recommendation is to bring a recovery plan by end of December. So a lot of progress has been made to make sure that we end up with a balanced budget. And the report is very detailed, but I have to say, as we've discussed last time, and Councillor Frank quite kindly made a recommendation that the budget is very complex. We are still in the period of COVID. We're still waiting for the final settlement, what figure will be allocated to each individual authority. There's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of recovery, parking income, all these things. So it's quite a difficult sort of budget, and monitoring as well this year has been a challenge. So we've applied the contingency, and based on applying those contingency right now is around 700. So how we would like to sort of refer to members, this is going to the executive and is already on the council website. So that's on the executive 6th of December. Okay, so if there's any specific questions, I can take those specific questions. But as I said, next FRG will bring in the same report and we'll go in for much more detail.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, Deb, could you move your mic a bit closer? So thank you for that. Are you still expecting a multi-year settlement? And are you expecting final figures during December? Or are we going to have to wait as we have in the past?
That's two very good questions. Is every chief finance officer's mind. So we've got an spending review free year, which is great. We are expecting a free settlement, yes. However, I have to say, based on information we have received, the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, is going and is appointed and is looking at how local government will be funded. So although the spending review has got 3-year allocation, but how this will interact with business rates retention, fair funding review, those are projects and policy document which the Secretary of State is looking at. Our understanding is this settlement, which will be in December, as you said, it will be, normally it says provisional and the final come in January, but most of the time the provisional and the final, there's no big difference. So the provisional settlement for 22-23 and 2-year onward, we're expecting this by mid of December. Having said that, the 22-23 settlement will be announced, but if there's any major changes in the way local government will be financed and take into account business rates retention, which already there's indication that whether we'll go with 75% or not, and fair funding review, that we are expecting to have an indication from the Secretary of State in the provisional settlement to say what it's going to look like. So there will be, to cut the story short, a 3-year settlement, yes, 22-23 will be firm, but the 2 years, that largely depends on what Secretary of State view on how they would like to fund, and there is indication that the areas where leveling up fund will be very much built in that settlement.
Any more questions or queries or comments? Well, thank you very much for a very quick update. I'm sure. Nine, SIPA, Financial Management Code. This looks fairly serious stuff.
Yes.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah. So I think what is happening over the last 2 years or 3 years, there has been local government is under pressure, local government finance under pressure, and we have councils who have their own problem, and some councils have issued Section 114 notices. So SIPA is very much behind regulating the accounting profession within local government. So SIPA guidance, sometimes the legislation won't give prescribed measures for local government to follow, because there was always refer to SIPA guidance. In the same way, like Institute of Chartered Accountants, they are quite those certified accountants, they issue guidance on private sector. So SIPA is very much for local government, NHS, and yeah. So when we go through these difficult times, SIPA, who's got quite a good sort of reputation in making sure local government finance are properly managed, it's timely for them to review the FM code. So the FM code, basically, as paragraph 5 says, is represent a roadmap of good financial management, and council must demonstrate they have processes in place to satisfy the principle and standards of the code. Now, this is not mandatory, but because it's guidance coming from SIPA, external auditors, Deluxe now, which is the OLMH said, they'll be looking what the council are complying. And qualified accountants like I'm a SIPA qualified as well. So we as officers, we have to comply to this code as part of our professional code of conduct. So we have to demonstrate that we are implementing as a Section 151 officer. Now, this was supposed to come into effect 31st of March 2021, but because of COVID, SIPA has realized that the implementation will be March 2022. We've made significant progress, But one of the things is SIPFA FM code says it's a collective responsibility of the whole organization. So paragraph 6 says, including elected members, chief executive, chief finance officer, section 151, professional colleague leadership. So it's quite getting the council financial management is a collective responsibility for all officers and members. I think in paragraph 9, it says if you have a good financial management, improve financial resilience, and it's demonstrate that you have a sustainable public service. And there have been quite some report issued lately about governance and financial management in some of the councils. So those lessons learned for everybody, but we have made significant progress on implementation of the SIPFA. So this is the first draft, and in general, we will be bringing a detail our self-assessment on each individual, and that those run into sort of several pages. I think paragraph 10 give a summary of what are the areas which we are going to look at based on the FM code. 6 principles: organizational leadership, accountability, very important, transparency, that's the Nolan principles, professional standards, assurance, and long-term sustainability. And right now, long-term sustainability, financial resilience is top of all council agenda. I think it's got all the standards is what we have to follow in terms of practice. So professional codes issued by SIPFA and other organization, and that's what described on your page 13, paragraph 11. Paragraph 13 talks about we are doing a self-assessment. As part of self-assessment, we have to look at our constitution, our financial regulation, budget policy papers, our governance structure. We are carrying out interviews with officers and section 151, look at financial documents. So these are areas which we are going to look at in order to compile the evidence to say whether we are complying with the SIPFA FM code. There will be RAG status. So there's the first draft we've already worked on, so we are progressing on that. So the early signs are that there's a lot of areas we're complying with. Those areas which will be amber will have to come up with a sort of improvement plan. So we have to provide the evidence. And one of the things you will see key risk is compliance with a statutory code is not a statutory requirement. However, legislation always says you have to follow guidance from SIPFA. So indirectly, it's got quite a lot of authority. External auditors will look at the progress, will look at compliance, but if you're not complying or we are not up and ready by 31st of March, this is something we'll pick up as part of their audit and as part of VFM assessment. There's a time frame for implementation, and following the time frame, you will see we'll be bringing further report and both to FRG and to audit committee as well, because FRG in terms of financial prudence and financial management, audit committee in terms of recent governance. So both committee has got it. You go to executive and you go to for full approval. So just to, and then on pages 16 onwards, you've got some guidance, objectives, part of the principles, and those are the principles. On page 19 is laid down all the 6 strands in terms of leadership accountability. And then there's a checklist which follows, and we are filling those checklists. So it's quite extensive piece of document, but we've made significant progress and we'll be bringing these to members' attention and for much more detailed scrutiny in January, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, just looking at paragraph 15, by January, you expect to know pretty much where the council is and where it needs to go. I'm just wondering whether that might be an opportunity for a joint meeting of FRG and Audit Committee. It's an issue in which both bodies have obviously a serious interest and responsibility. Just a suggestion. I'm not. I wouldn't want to prescribe how it happens, but.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. It would save it being repeated twice. And also when anything gets repeated twice, there's always a slight difference or either, well, the tone or things like that. So yeah, a good idea.
I think Chair needs to be left to Dev's judgment to make sure that he's actually ready to do that. And if that isn't the right time, then do it when it is.
If they want to get started in the end of the financial year. Any other questions, queries? So I presume it'll mean an increased level of training, since they have included, and as well, it was always that elected members were responsible, but I think this really brings it to the forefront that they have to know what they're voting for rather than just voting. And I think that would improve everything and make people aware of, their responsibilities. Well, a lot of people. Right, thanks very much, Dev. And I'm sure you'll keep us up to date on the progress that's going on with SIPFA, Management Code, Financial Management Codes. Right, item 10, SEMLEP.
So thanks, Chair. Just one of the things which I would say before item 10 is there was a request from FRG for the external auditors to come and explain about 1819 and 1920 accounts, where we are in terms of state of the account. So there's an audit committee on the 9th of December. So external auditors have a discussion with them. They are preparing their report, which will be submitted to the 9th of December. And that report should address the points raised by members here. So what I would suggest is, once you've got those reports finalized, I'll be liaising with the audit committee. And then at the same time, when this is going to be dispatched to the audit committee, I will forward the copy to FRG if the chair is agreeable, because it's a report which is in the public domain anyway. Yeah, and that's, yeah. So I'm in fact drafting with them next week and the things which we're working on. Okay. So,
sorry, Dev, to interrupt, but just so members are aware, there is an item on the 11th of January, FRG for the external auditors to attend to give out that report.
Yeah. But as I said, this is the report which I'm sure once it's out, we'll make sure FRG is aware, and then they will attend. Okay, thanks. So in terms of, there was another request to bring a report on SEMLEP funding for Mark Rusford School. As pointed out last time, there's still an ongoing investigation. So I've contacted NATIS. NATIS are responsible to carry out that investigation. So there's still an investigation going on. So I'm sure members will appreciate I won't be able to go into the detail of those fraud. What I would say here is that was reported to the police. The police got involved, and eventually it was transferred to NATIS, who is responsible to take quite significant fraud of this nature. Paragraph 4 says it was not money which belonged to the council, and we have no reason to believe that it was the council system which were compromised. Paragraph 5 says I've contacted NATIS to request an update. That was after the meeting with FRG. But at this stage, there is no substantive additional development or new information available which I can bring to the FRG. And there is also an understanding that because we've got BEES, we've got the SEMLEP and the council, so we've got three parties. So whenever we issue a joint statement, and at this stage, these are the things which were agreed, and that's the things which I can bring to FRG. But when further information is received, a prompt update will be provided to the group with full report to follow once the investigation is concluded. So this is a chair. I got the information which I can provide to the group at this stage, and I'm sure you appreciate, because it's an ongoing investigation. We have been advised by NATIS. We can't disclose any further information which we have been discussing. So on that, I'm quite happy to take any questions, but if those are quite general but not specific, I'm quite happy to answer, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dev. David?
Yeah, just a few questions, please. But first of all, did Mark Rutherford School actually get their money?
Yes.
Where did that come from? Was it from SEMLEP reserves, from the council reserves, or did the ever so generous Tory government actually come up with another 1.2 million?
At this stage, I wouldn't be able to go in that detail. If we are to go more into the mechanics of this, then I'll have to contact SEMLab, and then we can come up with a joint statement. But one of the things is the school, they've got the funding, so the project is going. What other discussion has been taking place at this stage, it's very much part of the investigation, will form part of the final report. So if you appreciate at this stage, I would be able to go into further detail on those specific matters.
Okay, moving on from this particular situation, just a few general questions about the process and the procedure in the relationship between the council and the government and SEMLEP. I understand the council is the accountable body and holds the funds. So is it true then that the council dispenses funds in accordance with instructions received from SEMLEP?
The council is an accountable body, and absolutely. So the fund is released from base to the council for projects approved by SEMLEP board. So your point is right. Once SEMLEP board approve those projects, and when we reach those milestones, then we get instruction from SEMLEP to say we've reached those milestones, and we as an accountable body has got those grant conditions attached with those letters when we issue the funding. And if those milestones are reached, then we have the fund, and then we release, make the transfer from the bank account which we have here. So that's how it works. So we get the instruction, yes, when to release, and that's the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah. How is that instruction from SEMLEP received? Is it an email or is there some specialist communication?
I'm afraid I think we are going into the detail now, so that will subject of the investigation. So at this stage, I can discuss the general process, but on this, if I'm going to discuss things, then we'll be going into the specific matters. So I would rather discuss further before I come to any provide any additional information. So if you excuse me on this one, I would rather at this stage, because of the ongoing investigation, I would rather not. But some of the general process I can, but specifically how this done, yeah, I would rather not in a position at this stage, if you appreciate that, Councillor Frank.
Okay, do you recall the date, approximate date, the month will do, when the fact that £1.2 million was missing was discovered?
Again, I would say we are going to take specific of this matter. So because it's an ongoing investigation, it is a lot of information which we've provided. So, and that report, full report, will disclose exactly when it happened, how it's happened, and yeah. So at this stage, I would be going. Otherwise, I'll be revealing information, specific information about that specific fraud. So I'm sure you appreciate that, Councillor Frank.
And indeed, I don't appreciate it. I can look up the date quite easily by going to the Luton Today website and discovering the date on which they announced that, you know, that they actually gave the news item that the money was missing. Surely, if Luton Today knows when it was missing, the editor at the Luton News knows when it's missing, why can't you tell us when it went missing?
I think what I'm trying to say here, Councillor Frank, is one question is leading to another questions, and I'm a bit conscious about where we are going to heading. So what I'm saying here, there's enough information on Luton News, Luton Today. So those information already in the public domain. If there's specific questions which we would like, I'm quite happy to take back. But at this stage, at committee level, I wouldn't be going into the detail and the chronology of when it happened, how it happened, so whether there was an email or there's a phone call, what the date and everything. So, and I don't have those specific information, so I don't want to quote something. And at this stage, as I said, but if you want some specific detail, which as you quite practice is already on the Newton news, and that's fine. I'm quite happy. But at this stage, I would say if there is any specific or about this, I would rather take it outside this meeting, but not go into sort of one question leading to another. And that's probably I would say at this stage. But I'm quite happy to go in further if there's anything outside. I'm quite happy to respond to those.
Okay. The fact is, it's nearly 2 years since this money went missing. It's 2 years since it was made public that it had gone missing. An investigation is going on, which we're told doesn't really seem to be getting anywhere near the truth. The fact is that most people who've got half a brain know exactly what happened and know exactly why the money went missing. Why an investigation needs to take this long, I really don't understand at all. It ought to have been concluded ages ago. And the more we are denied basic answers like when was it known that the money went missing, information which is already public and which I can look up easily myself without any problem, then please don't be surprised when people start thinking that what we're heading for is yet another cover-up.
Can I answer, Chair? I don't think I agree with all the assertions by Councillor Frank. With due respect, we're not withholding any information. What we're saying is, from a legal point of view, in any case, when there's an ongoing investigation, I can't breach that and start to disclose information which I've been sort of instructed not to disclose because there's an ongoing information. So neither the council nor officers are withholding any information. We've got information, but we have been advised when there's an ongoing investigation, then we can't comment. So I'm just following advice from which I have received. That doesn't mean that I'm withholding information. So what I would say here to Councillor Frank is it's not that we are withholding information deliberately. No. The question is if there's an investigation ongoing, then I think it's fair with any ongoing investigation to provide the information which we have been told to provide and not to go into detail. So thanks, Chair.
Yeah, the point I'm making, Chair, just so that we're all absolutely clear, is that we are now being refused information which is already in the public domain and is already well known. Absolute rubbish, nonsense.
Can I just come back on that? As I said, if you make a specific request, Councillor Frank, I will respond to that. Information is already in the public domain. The information which the council has already put in the public domain as well. So we will refer to those. But at this stage, unless I've got any specific, and go back and draft a proper written response and get clearance from parties, and at the same time with our other SEMLEP. And so it's got to be a joint thing, which I'm quite happy to go back and reveal those additional information, provided we clear it with the authorities. So I'm quite happy to take detailed sort of requests from Councillor Frank and then provide a written response, provided I get those advice. Right now, I haven't got advice from a legal. I need to get advice from those who are doing the investigation. What at this stage I can say and what I can't. But again, I will conclude, we're not withholding information. It's just because of the ongoing investigation. That's why we can go into the detail. Thanks, Chair.
So could you just clarify? I'm a little bit confused because there's so many questions. So the money that went missing, the 1.2 million, however much it wasn't money from the council taxpayers of Luton, and it wasn't money belonging to the council, as far as we're aware.
Yes, Councillor, it says this wasn't money belonging to the council. And what it says was a highly sophisticated external criminal operation. So we're not talking about, it's highly sophisticated external criminal. So I think I would just leave it there, those wordings, then you will see it's highly sophisticated. Yeah. So yeah, it was not the council money.
So the money is not from the council taxpayers in Luton. It's not money that we collected from the residents of Luton. It's external funding.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you.
Can we just understand, Chair, it is taxpayers' money, but not directly money paid by the council taxpayers to Luton Council. But yes, it is taxpayers' money.
So do we have any idea how long this investigation will take?
I haven't got a definite sort of date. I can go back and try to get a view. I think one of the things is these types of, as it states, is highly sophisticated external criminal. So it's not something which is, yeah, it's highly sophisticated, and I don't want to go into the detail because when you will see the amount of detail, then probably you will appreciate why it's taking such a long time. But at this stage, Councillor, no. But what I can reassure you is every effort, everything is be done. The council is cooperating, every SEMLEP is cooperating, everybody is cooperating to make sure that we get to the bottom of that. Thanks.
Just to follow up on that, I obviously understand that there is an element of how long is a piece of string about the time frame of this then, but is it safe to assume that we're talking that for any kind of prompt update, we're still going to be waiting several months at least?
At this stage, I wouldn't be able to give a definite date here, Councillor. I'm sure you appreciate that, but I will try to go back and see whether we've got some. I can give you a sort of a view, an idea when it will. Yeah, but it's not. I'm not an investigator, so it's yeah. But I'll go back and get that information. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Well, thank you, Dev. I think the general mood of the meeting is that it really is the slow progress that's been made in this investigation. Where that fault lies, I don't know, but 2 years is a long time to wait for something which technically is quite simple. It's just an action that was taken. So we need, surely somebody in the past 2 years could come up with a reply. Anyway, we'll note the slow progress made to date, and we obviously realise that you've been given advice not to give out certain information, and we have to respect that. But I think the whole FRG is upset about the delay. Thank you very much, Dev. Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes. Item 11. Do you think we could have your microphone on, please?
There we go. So, good evening, members. So, I'm Nigel Robinson, the head of Reps and Benefits, and it's my job this evening to present is probably a technical paper, actually. But so, what we're showing this evening is the draft paper that is going to the executive on the setting of the council tax base. I'm sure many of you are aware it's a statutory calculation required annually in order to calculate the council tax for the following year, and we have to set the tax base by law by the 31st of January in each year. So, as I say, as it's a technical paper, I'll just endeavour to give you an overview to aid member understanding of what the calculation is looking like for this year. So, as I say, as an overview, in this calculation, we take account of every property banded on the valuation list in Luton, and this year's date was as at the 13th September 20 of this year. And then we adjust it by a number of things. So it's every property in the borough. We adjust it by growth, and then we also take into account the occupation of each property within the base, and we take into account, of course, of discounts and exemptions, any premiums that we may have for empty properties and the like. And then we apply further adjustments because of the level of council tax reduction that we're granting in Luton. And finally, we actually make provision for an estimated delay collection rate. So then the result of that calculation, we come to a figure which is then all averaged and expressed as a Band D equivalent. So just to be totally clear, this is not number of properties, not number of occupants, but it's an average Band D equivalent, and that's what we take forward to as part of the budget process for our preceptors and setting the council tax, as I explained before. So if I just move into the main body of the appendix paper, which is going to the executive. If we move to point 10 of the draft paper, you'll see that in this year's calculation, it's actually showing some quite positive news. We've got growth in the tax base, an increase of 1,651.5 over last year's figure. So the main explanation for that is ongoing growth in the borough, and looking at the base, we can see that we feel that's going to be ongoing going forward. It's also a reduction in the number of people that are claiming council tax reduction, so that reduces the damping effect that has on the base. And so if you actually move to point 18 in the paper, that will shows you the breakdown of the adjustments that we've made. And I can advise members also, we've looked at our overall collection position. Obviously, members will be aware that collection at the moment is heavily affected by the COVID response, and effectively it's creating a timing delay for us. But we can see that although in-year collection, as reported last year, was below target, we can see that we're actually collecting substantial amounts of arrears now going forward, and we have been able to resume our processes in applying for liability orders and going back to court. We've actually been to several courts now already, but even though we are limited, so that's all influenced us in having a look at our potential collection rate, and we've put a collection rate in the calculation of 96%. So that's effectively all the money that we're putting into the collection fund. So just towards the end of the report, we look at some key risks. So in making these assumptions, we've made these on the best information we have available at the moment. Obviously, we're closely monitoring the situation with the end of furlough and the impact, particularly on council tax reduction cases, but I can advise we haven't got all the detailed figures for Luton yet, as I was speaking in this chamber last night. But however, we are aware that claimant numbers are actually falling, and they have been falling for a couple of months, and I continue. The latest figures we got this week for nationally is that the effect of the end of furlough doesn't appear to be having the effect that some people were predicting, i.e. a spike in universal credit claimants. And so, but however, as we've put in the risks in the end of the paper, what is important in making this provision is that your finance officer's advice is we must be prudent, and we have also made a provision in case, particularly after Christmas, where it's quite common that the economic conditions are not so good, and if we haven't made an allowance in case we do have an increase for council tax claimants during that period. So that's that's a quick brief run through the calculation. Very happy to take any, as I say, it is a technical paper, but very happy to take any questions that members have got or on the contents.
Yes, David.
Yeah, just some clarification, please, Nigel, on the numbers. But I'm looking at paragraph 5. 698 empty for more than 6 months, and 197 empty premium, presumably they're empty more than 10 years. Does that 698 include the 197, or to get the total number of empty homes, do I need to add them together?
It is included, but what we've this comparison has been shown previously, so that it is in the total figure. So, I mean, what we can see here is, obviously, I'm aware that members, obviously before I started at Luton, but members have put in a scheme for premium. What we can see is the number of accounts this year that are getting the premium have fallen slightly, and certainly most of them are making the top rate at the moment. We're probably charging majority at 200%, to be quite honest. So that's sort of change, but it is included within the total figure.
Okay, thank you for that. It's encouraging to see the numbers have gone down since previous year. I mean, 197 homes being charged 200% or 300% of council tax is a nice little windfall for the council, but I'm sure all of us sitting here would rather see families living in them.
Any other questions, queries, comments? Well, thank you very much for coming, for a very succinct description of how we get our council tax base. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Chairman. Much appreciated.
Item 12 is the work programme for the remainder of this year. Over to Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Members have before them the current FRG work programme. Over the next 2 meetings, as members will be aware, it's quite budget heavy. You should also have before you the current executive forward plan. So if there's any items that members see fit to put onto our work programme, now's their opportunity.
Any comments, queries, or additions? Or deletions? Thank you. Act 72, Part